Okay, you're recorded, guys. Be aware. Okay, so let's start. Do we have any English speaking? Just to be sure, we have at least one here.
I am an English speaker. I do not know Russian, but I do know Polish, which is a bit similar, but not so much that I could understand Russian.
Yeah, cool. And then we will speak in English.
Thank you.
So do you see a presentation, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so thanks for joining. It's, as I said to Artyom, it's very interesting that this is actually the first Centrifugo community meeting over 7 years of Centrifugo development. So yeah, thanks for joining. Glad you like Centrifugo and use it. And actually, if you tell me more how you use Centrifugo after this meeting, it would be very cool. Yeah, so let's start. I have about 28 slides here, and we will look at most notable Centrifugo v3 changes and what have changed, what features have been added. So it's maybe I will show something live, but maybe not. Maybe in the end, maybe I don't know. Just ask me questions during the meeting. Don't wait till the end. So yeah, let's start. I'll start with Centrifugo v2 lifecycle reminders. So Centrifugo v2 was started 2.5 years ago, was released. It was based on Centrifuge library for Go, and it's still based on this library. The library become more mature and now used in Grafana. So it's pretty good thing that they adopted this library. It was based on protobuf-based protocol schema and supported binary and JSON protocols. And it's worth to say that client protocol will stay the same in Centrifugo v3. We will speak more about this later. It supported Prometheus integration. It added GRPC API during v2 lifecycle. We also got Grafana dashboard, so it's pretty good in observability. In 2.4, I added server-side subscription, which is a very interesting feature, which requires less code on client side and more control for subscriptions on server side. So as soon as connection established, you can tell Centrifugo which subscriptions you want client to subscribe, and then you don't need to call subscribe from the client side. Also, proxy to backend have been added, which I fight for, which I was against for a long time. But my experience at Avito, working on Messenger, working on Avito Messenger, helped me to understand that actually this makes sense in many situations. And we also added Redis Streams, Redis cluster support, and we now have official Helm chart. So it's actually pretty good things happened, and many improvements in client-side libraries, but still client libraries is maybe the weakest part of Centrifugo ecosystem. During v2 lifecycle, I once sent a link to usage poll in Google Docs, and you guys filled it, but I think nobody have seen results. Do you see graphs, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so here we can see that many users just joined Centrifugo community. Both memory and Redis engines are used. So almost nobody used nuts until recent moment. Recently, we have first nuts broker user. Most users use WebSocket transport. Almost nobody uses SockJS. By the way, anyone here still uses SockJS with Centrifugo, or everybody uses WebSocket?
Just WebSockets all the way.
No SockJS users. I suppose it will be removed at some point, not in V3 release, but maybe in V4. You can tell more about this. Someone sent binary. Again, this is a recent user. Until 2 days, about 2 days ago, there were no binary transport users here. Join leaf 50/50. Presence feature looks like it's useful. History recovery, almost useful. Connection expiration, somebody uses, somebody not. Server-side subscriptions. So it looks like it's pretty popular since it was added not too much time ago. HTTP proxy, as we can see, somebody uses connect proxy and somebody uses other types of proxy. GRPC IP, yes, there are users of it. Client-side libraries. The most popular is JavaScript. For JavaScript one, which is not unusual. Backend languages. Most our users coming from Python, PHP, and Go languages. Actually, I was hoping on Ruby on Rails community, but Centrifugo is not popular there. I don't know why. Maybe nobody have heard about it. But yeah. And some feedback. So let's switch to presentation. Any questions at this moment? No?
This is the first time I've heard of binary protocols instead of JSON. Is this supposed to be faster in some way?
Actually, it saves bandwidth traffic on about 30% in average case. It's faster because protobuf serialization is very optimized in Centrifugo. We are using very fast library for marshalling and marshalling protobuf, so it's faster than JSON on server side. But it comes with downsides because you can't inspect your frames because actually our mobile clients uses a protobuf protocol internally, but most users still passing JSON payloads over protobuf protocol, and actually this is fine. And in Centrifugo v3, as you will see, I added more tools to work with JSON payloads.
Nice.
Since it's just what everybody uses. Yeah, but binary is pretty fine for some use cases. Yeah, so for Centrifugo v3, the targets were remove some craft, clean up, actualize configuration, since it's 2.5 years and many things changed. Make it more simple for simple use cases to increase adoption. Centrifugo requires bidirectional clients to work with. In Centrifugo v3, I try to address this, and you will see how. Make it a bit more performant. At some places, we achieved a big performance improvement. Also, we will look at this. Extend existing API with new functionality, since Centrifugo protocol actually allows much more. That centrifuge protocol allows much more that Centrifugo exposes to users. So there are some extensions possible. Also, it was required to try to keep existing features and keep client protocol stable. From Centrifugo v1 to Centrifugo v2, I broke the client protocol, and this caused a very big problems in community with migrations. So there are some users like ManyChat who still using Centrifugo v1 because they just don't want to migrate, since it works, it solves the task. Yeah, but it's not actual. Almost 3 years now. And introduce Pro version. We will look at this and think on license change. As many of you read GitHub issue, I thought making Centrifugo AGPL v3, but decided to avoid doing this. So Centrifugo will stay Apache instead of Meet. So this is permissive open source license, and nobody should have problems with licensing stuff. Since personally, I'm not very strong in licensing, I suppose if I moved Centrifugo to AGPL, this will just make my life much more difficult, because many problems with network and etc. Oh, any questions, guys? Okay, let's continue then. So the first thing I want to mention is that seek and gen fields inside protocol have been removed. This was planned, and all configuration used v3 use offset option, which is now removed, and we are using offset by default. So stream position now represented with 2 fields in Centrifugo. The first one is offset, which is uint64, and the second field is epoch, which is string. For those who have never seen this, I just ask me later. I can send the link where this is described in docs of Centrifugo. I suppose few users dealt with history position, but Centrifugo v3 will have extended functionality for history, so you may you will need to understand what is this, I suppose, at some point to utilize those features. Again, if you have questions about slides, just ask. Allowed origins introduced recently will be now enforced to be used, and same origin will be used by default. And so you will need to set a list of patterns of origins which you allow to connect to Centrifugo over client protocol. That's just for security thing. As I wrote at some point in an issue when allowed regions were introduced. It was not very, it wasn't really required until we had only GWT authentication. But with proxy feature, with connect proxy feature, this is what everybody should use to secure your socket connection and prevent hijacking. SockJS will be now disabled by default. So Centrifugo v2, you could disable it if you want. Now you need to enable it if you need it. So as I already asked, anyone using or not. GWT changes. There will be some slight changes in GWT format, but most of them relate to rare used fields of GWT. But this will be reflected in release notes because it's very hard to tell about. It's better to read. Configuration changes. Many options. Yeah.
About the GWT, sorry. Would it be possible to make it so that you can choose a field that you want to use as a identifier for the user? So instead of sub, for example, it will be some sort of a subfield?
No. I think sub is convenient in most systems for identifier of user. So it will fit most use cases. If you need to solve specific task, just write me about it and we will think more. Because in Go, every JSON decoding should be typed in.
Oh, I see. You can't make it dynamic.
Yeah, you can do it, but it's not very good thing to do. So yeah, let's discuss your use case and maybe we will make this optional somehow. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay, thanks.
So many configuration options were renamed. This will be in release notes. Some options have been removed. And options which contain time intervals now should be written as strings with like this. So if you want to configure Redis timeout, for example, you previously used integer or float notation. Now you need to use string. So just 2s, which means 2 seconds. And full list of changes will be in migration guide. So we won't spend a lot of time on configuration here. Now about features. The first new feature which will be added is GRPC proxy. Previously, we had an HTTP proxy to backend. So client connected to Centrifugo using any Centrifugo transport. Then Centrifugo transformed this into HTTP request to your backend, to your application backend. Now we have this situation. So instead of HTTP, we will be able to use gRPC. I can't say that this is better, but this can fit some infrastructures for some users, I suppose. So this is mostly to increase adoption of centrifuges, because I don't think there is much sense in moving from HTTP to gRPC if HTTP already works for you. gRPC should be a bit more performant, but there are some challenges like load balancing with gRPC, etc. So this is one new option, but which you want to consider using. One more notable change, which should increase adoption, is unidirectional transport support. This is actually cool and really excited having this, because before this moment, you had to use Centrifugo client library to communicate with Centrifugo, right? You need to add dependency to Centrifuge Dart into your Dart project, to Centrifuge Swift into your iOS project. But since this is an extra dependency, I believe this prevented some users from using Centrifugo for basic scenarios, like every user has its own personal channel and just want to subscribe to some endpoint and receive updates related to personal channel. So with unidirectional transports, it will be possible now. You can enable automatic server-side subscription to a personal channel. Just connect to Centrifugo using native browser APIs, or as we will see, which let's see which transport supported actually. So this is event source, which has some advantages on mobile devices, since, as someone says, event source is the most battery-friendly transport for mobile. This is HTTP streaming. With recent browsers, with recent browser versions, there is a way to consume streams without previously existing disadvantages. So previously, if you read HTTP stream in a browser, you need to reconnect periodically, because internal buffer just become more and more. It will grow in size. With recent browser versions, you can use HTTP streaming with Streams API, and this will be available in Centrifugo. And also, this is a good way to connect to Centrifugo using just curl tool, which was never possible before, because you need to have a pretty complex handshake with Centrifugo in bidirectional transport case. One more is unidirectional WebSocket. This is actually funny because WebSocket itself is bidirectional transport, but it will be possible to connect to Centrifugo using WebSocket in unidirectional way. This will help to why this makes sense, because in browser you have a limit of simultaneous connections to the same domain using event source, using HTTP based transports. WebSocket doesn't have these limitations, so you can consider using WebSocket, but build your application using unidirectional approach. And gRPC unidirectional stream will be also supported. I think I will show how it can be used actually. Let me show just now, right now. So I have several examples. Centrifugo will provide a protobuf file with Centrifugo Unistream service, which you can copy paste to your project, generate gRPC code based on it, and simply subscribe and simply connect to Centrifugo. Here's an example for Go. You don't need any Centrifugo client library to consume real-time events. Just mostly call consume function, which is generated for you by GRPC, and then react on each event using request consume event using rec function. I don't know how this is right in English, rec or not rec. Oops.
Receive.
Receive, yeah. Yeah, and then you can just unmarshal frames which you are interested in. So in most cases, you are interested in publication frame type. So all you need to do is one unmarshalling according to Centrifugo protocol, and you have an event. I think that's cool, since you can connect to Centrifugo from some applications without using complex client libraries. Of course, bidirectional client libraries will be de facto Centrifugo, de facto way to communicate with Centrifugo. Yeah, so I will still develop it, since you can't achieve anything with unidirectional transports. For example, you can't send RPC with unidirectional transport, right? What is possible with bidirectional transports like WebSocket and SockJS. Yeah. Any questions here?
You mentioned changes about cross-domain requests. Will it be possible to use wildcard?
Yeah, you can put wildcard symbol like you. It's actually already possible. So
yeah, I use, but I wanted to ask about V3. Okay.
Yeah, it will be possible in this way, but discouraged, of course, and you will see a warning in logs on Centrifugo start.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But you can go this way. Yeah, next feature is Tarantool engine, but it will be experimental. Let's look at why I decided to add Tarantool engine first. It can provide new persistent properties. Actually, it's pretty hard to implement Centrifugo engine and to find the system that allows implementing Centrifugo engine, because it has pretty unique properties on how it works with streams. There is at most once pops up. There are ephemeral streams with retention, and Centrifugo designed in pretty unique way on how it compensates at most once properties of Redis pops up, for example. Yeah, so Tarantool is just one more option in IT world. I don't know any other system at this point which allows to implement Centrifugo engine. So it can just provide a new persistent properties. It's freaking fast. So regarding to my benchmarks while I was developing it, for some operations, you can achieve 10x, 10 times more operations per second with Tarantool than with Redis. This also very important for history calls, because as I said, to compensate at most once delivery of pops up, Centrifugo periodically synchronizes each client position with position inside broker. It can be Redis, or now it will be Tarantool. So there are a lot of history requests under the hood actually. And having a performance boost for history requests can help in for huge Centrifugo setups a lot. But it's harder to operate. With Redis, we can register all Lua functions on Centrifugo start. With Tarantool, we need to maintain one separate repo, which is a Tarantool modular. Let me show which repo I mean. This one. So you should start Tarantool, and you should use this repo as package for Tarantool. And this is actually hard to operate. Yeah. So, and since I personally have not used Tarantool a lot before, I am considering this integration experimental, and I hope with community help, we will make this more mature in the future. But it works, it's very fast, and it can open new possibilities. So I think it's worth having it. Also, some users inside our group told that they are very interested in Tarantool integration. So we'll see how it goes. Any questions, guys, about Tarantool maybe? No.
So one thing we at Pluma were interested about when it comes to Centrifugo was to have some kind of memory associated with user profiles. I've heard about Tarantool just now, and I went to the website, and it says that it allows storages for customer profiles. So I guess it does have some kind of storage. So what we wanted to achieve is to be able to fetch presence and then some associated data with that presence. So for example, a user is present online, and then we know that they are at the /home/whatever site. Is this is integration of Tarantool enabling this kind of feature?
Actually, what to say? So you want to attach additional information about connection to Centrifugo, right? And
so that's something. Yeah, that's more or less something that we wanted to achieve. Yes.
Let's discuss this.
Sure.
Later. I think I need more information.
Sure. So Tarantool is introduced because it is fast, right?
Yeah, because it's fast, and it has new properties of persistence in comparison with Redis.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. Yeah, but in Russia, we have a pretty big community of Tarantool, and it's used a lot in enterprise systems.
Mm-hmm.
So this can be useful for Centrifugo development somehow, I suppose.
And for Tarantool.
And for Tarantool, yeah. Actually, Tarantool have less stars than Centrifugo on GitHub, but they are part of a big company, and they sell their software to big guys. Yeah. What Centrifugo does not. Yeah.
One question. Do you have a plan to use Tarantool in Avita?
I'm not working at Avita anymore, but I'm working in Grafana these days. So if I stayed in Avita, this could be very interesting to try actually. but I don't think when I left Avito, we had we didn't use Centrifugo there, but we used Redis engine of Centrifugo on backend. And so it was based on the same code, on the same algorithms as Centrifugo, because it was written by me, just translated to Avito reality or Avito Messenger reality. And we had 10 Redis instances. Each of them consumed only 15% of CPU. So, and this worked for 1 million connections. I think there were no reason to migrate to Tarantool at that point. Maybe if Messenger have been grown 10 times maybe, then moving to Tarantool could make sense. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, let's go next. We told about Tarantool. Redis Streams, which were introduced at some point during a Centrifugo life cycle, now will be used by default. I actually don't know really any one of you already uses Redis Streams with Centrifugo, or you are using default. Anyone can tell about this? So nobody uses use streams option in configuration, right? No. Just say no.
No.
Yeah, thanks. So then you will be surprised. There is Redis Streams support in Centrifugo, which helps a lot dealing with bigger streams in memory in Redis, because as we will see next, these streams open a new way of interaction with Centrifugo history. Yeah, so let's go next. We will speak about this more. Oh, here it is. So it will be possible to iterate or paginate over history in Centrifugo v3. So you can paginate, iterate over history since some position, some offset, and some epoch, and provide a limit. So you can previously, there was only an option to receive all current history in channel. Now you have a way to iterate over it. Thus, theoretically, this can open a way to keep larger streams, a larger history than you could do before. And you will be able to iterate in both directions, from earliest to latest and vice versa, from latest to earliest. But you can see star here. I'm not sure I will be able to implement reverse direction for v3 starting release. So maybe it will be added at some point later. But it's already possible in Centrifuge library, but not really well tested. Still need to working on this. Yeah, and history API won't return all publication by default. This is actually one breaking change, one important breaking change that can affect your applications. I will provide an option to disable this behavior Yeah, but starting from Centrifugo v3, by default, when you call history, it won't return publications at all. You need to explicitly provide limit, which is greater than 0, to receive publications. Yeah, so I will try to write more details in migration guide. Any questions about history? No, no, just say no. Well, okay. API extensions let's talk about what have been added to API layer. I mean server API, server HTTP API, or server GRPC API. The first important thing is you will have a way to subscribe user or specific client to a channel, to the server-side channel, server-side subscription at any moment. Until this moment, you could only provide a list of channels on connect event, right? So inside GWT or GWT or in connect proxy response. But since connection can live forever, maybe users should be subscribed to a channel during connection already established. Now you can do this using subscribe API call and say, okay, Centrifugo, subscribe this user to this channel. You can also provide a client ID to this call to subscribe only specific client to a channel. This can be useful when using unidirectional transports, because you could mimic client-side subscribe functionality using this API call. Just send request to your backend, validate this request, and and then call Centrifugo API and tell Centrifugo to subscribe user to a channel, and it will be subscribed. This works with at most once guarantee, so it scales over PubSub. So it's not guaranteed that user will be subscribed, but it will mock most of the cases, and I think this risk is sufficient actually for this sort of functionality, and this can be handled on client side. So as soon as you ask your backend to subscribe to a channel and backend answered okay, you can work around possible message loss on client side. So if you didn't receive a server-side subscription event over unidirectional connection during some sort of timeout, you can consider that this call has been failed. I think this is a bit complex and better to be written somewhere in docs. I will try to add this in documentation or in blog post when I will announce v3 publicly. Now, publish API will return a stream position of published message. So as soon as you publish message to Centrifugo, it saves a message in history, if history enabled for channel, right? And now offset and epoch values can be returned to a caller. So you can somehow handle these things. For example, this actually raised from issue on GitHub where user asked for this because they needed to save offset to their database after publishing message to Centrifugo. Again, may sound complex. I can show you this live, but I suppose maybe later, because I'm not sure we will have time for this. Yeah. Again, and if you have any questions.
Question.
Yeah.
Will you make a subscribe API to accept list of server-side channels, or it will be one by one? We need to subscribe to a server channel one by one.
You need to subscribe to one by one, but actually there is a way to send many API requests to Centrifugo HTTP API, a batch of them, so you can batch these requests. Yeah, but implementing many channels, subscription to many channels was a bit hard to achieve without lots of refactoring. I thought about this, but I suppose that in most cases, users subscribe to single channel during connection lifetime. It's pretty rare situation when you need to subscribe user to a bunch of channels, I suppose.
So
in
my case, I display a list of chats, and I need to subscribe to all of them. And
yeah, this is very.
Currently, I do it in server side, so I store relationship between user and groups, or user between user.
I think it's not a good approach for chat systems, because
which one, from client or from server side?
I still think that for chat systems you need to have one personal channel only for each.
Yes, currently I do this way. I subscribe users to subscribe. Yeah.
Just continue doing this.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's pretty hard to properly manage missed messages if you have a lot of channels for one user. If user has 1,000 chats, you definitely not going to subscribe him for 1,000 channels every time.
I don't query all the 1,000 chats when I display chats to the user, only first 20, for example.
Yes, but you need to receive messages from other chats, right?
Okay, I didn't think about it.
From chats that not displayed. Yeah, so one personal channel solves everything. This can be a bit harder to implement on backend, of course, but I believe it's the right approach.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let's go next. Unsubscribe and disconnect will be extended with possibility to unsubscribe specific client by its ID, not just by user ID, but now by client ID. Again, can be useful for unidirectional transports, and also we will see some other applications later. And as I said, history API have been extended. You can now iterate over history using server API also. Actually, history iteration will be available in client protocol API and in server protocol API. So just use whatever you need. And a new RPC method will be added to API, which allows to extend Centrifugo API with JSON based methods, and it's already used for some things in Centrifugo v3. We will look at them a bit later. Yeah, maybe I will try to show something very soon. Position option. This is like recover option, like history recover, but it doesn't recover. So again, it's pretty hard to explain right now, but I will try to write more about this in documentation. Yeah, so what it does is that in streams with history, when you enable position option, Centrifugo will check client position in stream and disconnect it with insufficient state if some messages have been lost, but it won't do recovery automatically. So it just recover, but without missed message recovery. You will be able to recover messages manually from client side, for example, since we have a history pagination API at this moment. So it just extends a way you can interact with Centrifugo from client side, etc. Don't really want to dive deeper about this option, since I will try to explain it in documentation later. Channels API moved to RPC. Someone asked the channels API have been removed. It's not true. I will try to show. So this is a Centrifugo Pro, actually. Let's start Centrifugo with admin panel. And let's start client application. 1 second. This is a Tornado example which we have. Now let's go to, I hope it will work. Yeah. So here we can see that we connected to Centrifugo with user ID, oh my God, 56. Now let's open Centrifugo admin panel. Here it is. Now you can see, you can get channels using RPC API method. Get channels, params, submit, and you can see a list of channels. And actually, it now provides a number of connections in a channel at this moment. It was previously not available in Centrifugo v2. Let's try to unsubscribe from these channels. Ask again. As we can see, no data returned. Wait a second. Here's a zoom panel that always in wrong place. Let's subscribe again. WebSocket. Yeah, and actually it supports filtering by mask now. So it's possible to say something like this with wildcard support. And it will return only chat index, while there are actually much more channels in system, including this one and this one and this one. But this is all looks cool, but actually channels call have the same scalability aspects which were previously. So it doesn't scale well for large centrifugal setups. But if you use pattern matching for get channels and the result contains only several channels, it should work just fine, I suppose. So I can tell more how this is implemented later, maybe. Yeah, but it's not removed. It added to RPC, and it has new functionality in V3. Cool. Any questions? No? Okay. Better clustering. As you could see, Centrifugo supports clustering, right? So you can run a lot of centrifuges like this. I started one centrifuge with Redis engine, and let's start one more on a different port. Yeah, as you can see in admin web interface, it displays both nodes, and the improvement in clustering is as soon as one node goes away, it sends a shutdown signal to all other nodes. So all other nodes know that node left and removes it from known nodes list almost immediately. Previously, there was a delay about 10 seconds, maybe. Yeah, that's regarding clustering.
You mentioned nuts at the beginning of the call. Do you plan to use it for PubSub in future?
Sorry, nuts for PubSub already available, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
Let me show. If you look at current documentation.
Currently, you showed Redis is now used for PubSub in your example.
Yeah, in my example, it's Redis, but
Oh,
we
okay.
also use nuts. But Redis implements all Centrifugo functionality, including working with history, while nuts only can only be used for PubSub functionality with at most once delivery guarantee. Yeah, so this is described in docs. Just read it and you will see limitations, current limitations. This will stay the same in Centrifugo V3. Go next, right? Let's go. Client improvements. This is improvements in client libraries. So all clients will support server-side subscriptions. I will add them into Dart, Swift, Java, Go, and JavaScript clients. Some of them already supported server-side subscriptions, but some of them not. All will support. All will be updated to latest protobuf schema. And in mobile clients, maybe you noticed this, you had to use this URL params format равно equal protobuf format равно format equal protobuf. Now it will be possible to avoid using this since internally connection will communicate format using sub protocol of WebSocket. Yeah. Any questions? Maybe I can explain better because just haven't prepared for this talk at all. Sorry for my English. Guys, any questions? Anyone using mobile clients, by the way?
In the past, we used in React Native.
React Native. This is Centrifugo.js, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look at performance improvements in V3. Client JSON protocol is 3 till 4 times faster now, and it can be faster up to 30 times for large payloads. Actually, this is very, very big speed up, but you will only notice changes in load in massive load setups of Centrifugo, because while this is much faster, if you only have several users which uses Centrifugo, like I don't know, 1,000 users, I think you won't notice any difference. But on large scale setups with many concurrent connections, you should see a difference, and you should see a difference in garbage collection cycle times, since this speed up achieved by allocating much less memory, and garbage collector should do less work. Also, there is a zero allocation pass for massive broadcast. So as soon as you send one message, and it will be delivered to a lot of clients. Previously, each publication to each client allocated some memory. Now I remove this allocation. So also can be useful for if you're broadcasting to many users frequently. And one more nice thing is that in-memory client hub now sharded. So this should reduce lock contention. Again, you should only see the difference in high-scale Centrifugo setup. New documentation site. I sent you a video inside group, but let me show it here. So let's stop this example since it allocates port. It's now based on Dokusaurus framework to build documentation, and the site will look like this. So let's compare. This is how it looks now. This is how it will look in V3. I finally managed to write highlights with pictures here. Also, there will be unidirectional transport descriptions. It will have block. This is post about Centrifugo 3. Still thinking about this picture. Don't really like it. It's a bit bloody. And it will have Centrifugo Pro section. We will talk a bit more about Centrifugo Pro very soon. So I think it looks pretty good. And yep, it supports white theme also. Let's go next. The next topic is about Centrifugo Pro. As I said, I really wanted to try making Centrifugo development sustainable, since I spend a lot of time making it. And this is my one more attempt to do this. So open collective way didn't work very well. So just new thing to try. It will use a commercial license instead of Apache 2. It will be closed sourced and based on open source Centrifugo version. And it won't run without license key. Actually, what I did here is running Centrifugo Pro, but I have license key set in my environment. It's pretty hard for me to make all this work because it's not what I really like to do. Here's a section about Centrifugo Pro. It will cost some money for license key, and this license key will allow running Centrifuga, and it will have an expiration date. But after expiration date, Centrifuga won't stop working. So you just won't be able to update to a Centrifuga version, which is released after your license key expiration date. Yeah, so I think this is the best solution, since you don't need to worry that things will occasionally stop working at some point. But yeah. Let's look at features which will be available in Pro version. I don't really want to spend a lot of time of each of you for discussing these features, since I suppose not everyone here interested in buying this license key, but just let's just look what will be available. The first thing is very unique feature. It's called real-time tracing, and actually it will be possible in real time trace what's happening with any specific user ID in your system. So you also can trace every event in specific channel. This is very important for big projects, for enterprise projects, because you want to understand what's going on in your system. At Avito, we had a lot of different investigations regarding bugs in our applications or someone misusing our APIs. And this tracing feature could be very useful if we had it. Actually, at Avito, I only had some ideas on how to implement this in a way that it doesn't affect performance of Centrifugo cluster at all. And now it's available, and it's also possible to trace data in real time using Curl tool. So you don't have to use web interface. You can use Curl, save output to a file, and then inspect it in a comfortable way. Another thing is integration with ClickHouse. This is still in development, but it's a very cool feature for enterprise again, because it will allow to output all statistics about every operation, about every connection in Centrifuga into ClickHouse, which is very performant storage, and with minimal delay do some analytics based on this data. So this will be available in documentation later. Here's some example. For example, shows all unique users which we are connected to Centrifuga. You can also look, so all power of ClickHouse will be available for analyzing what's going on. Yep. Now, for example, show top 10 users which called publish operation during last 1 minute. Again, you will see this. Another feature is user active status. This is an integration with Redis, and it will allow to have a time when a user did was active in your application, and keep this natively in Centrifugo and Redis. I don't think I explained it very well, but we'll try to say in other words. So you have a method, update active status on client side. You call it whenever user made a useful action in your application. And then you can query for last time user was active in your application. This can be useful for Messenger application to show online status of your friends, for example, which is not very simple to do with Centrifugo presence feature, because it does not scale well for large channels with many active subscribers. Another one is operation throttling. This is also an integration with Redis. You can throttle any specific operation per user ID. Internally, it uses token bucket algorithm. And for example, you can say, I want that every specific user could not call publish operation more than one time in 1 second. And this will be provided by Centrifugo natively, by Centrifugo Pro. I think in the future, I may also add in-memory throttling in addition to Redis throttling, but we'll see how it goes. I don't actually understand whether anyone will buy at least one key. We'll try to buy. User connections RPC. This feature allows to find all active connections of specific user with additional metadata attached to it. So maybe this is somehow related to a question you asked me during this meeting. So, for example, this is how in Messenger application you can implement a functionality to show all my current sessions. Like in Telegram, when you go to settings, you can look all your active sessions and you can close every specific session just for security reasons, for example. And now it will be possible to implement with Centrifugo using this feature. Performance is much better. No, not much better actually, but better in Centrifugo Pro for HTTP API, for GRPC API, also faster HTTP proxy and faster GRPC proxy, and faster GRPC Unidirectional stream. This one is minor actually, but this again can be useful for large scale Centrifugo setups. I suppose it won't be noticeable for users which have several thousand of connections, but for, I don't know, maybe 50,000 of connections, this should be noticeable. So depends on how you interact with Centrifugo actually. Single flight option, don't really want to try to explain it. You can read it in documentation later, since it's pretty specific. And in web interface, you will be able to see CPU usage and memory usage of each Centrifugo node. And there are plans to make a better web UI in the future. I'm not sure how it will go again, so we'll see. Any questions regarding Pro version, guys?
Would it be possible to implement change user status endpoint somehow? I mean, when I open up, I send request change online status to true, set it to true, and so that other users can query my status. Currently, you described that when users make some action, we need to call API, but it means that we need to call this API maybe every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Periodically, and it will load the server.
Yeah, you're right. Need to think about it. Maybe it's possible to do in scalable way, but I will try to think. Not at the moment. So we at Messenger in Avito, we did similar things of what's available now in Centrifugo Pro, and it scaled pretty well. So yeah, it increased a lot on the server since it's periodic calls, but it scaled in a pretty good way. So with 1 million, actually with all Avito load, we only had 4 Redis instances, which means 4 CPU on all Avito, but I don't remember exactly. I think, yeah, 4 CPU. Very good question, very good idea. I will try to think, but not at the moment.
It's not only the problem that I need to send every periodically request that I'm active, but also other users will need to query periodically my status.
Yes, but it scales well, actually. Yeah, it increases load, but it's linearly scalable. I think maybe it's possible to subscribe. Don't really.
Currently, I send requests to my server. Server takes all subscriptions, all users that subscribe to this user, and broadcast event that some specific user change status to offline, and the same for online.
Yeah, but yeah, again, I thinking a lot about scalability, implementing these features. So trying to only add features which scale well. So as soon as you send a lot of, as soon as you send bursts of data into lots of channels, this can quickly become an anti-pattern at large scale. So
I don't have any other options.
Need to think. This scheme, which I just showed, will allow to provide active status with some approximation in time, but in a scalable way. Maybe I will be able to find a solution to instantly deliver notifications somehow, but I don't see it at the moment, to be fair.
Got it.
Yeah, we can discuss it again later, maybe. So just write me and we can think together. But I don't have ideas how to implement this at this moment. Any other questions, guys? We already finished actually, so. Okay, so some other small minor additions, changes will be reflected in migration guide. So what's next, right? Complete docs still in progress. Finish client improvements I talked about. Think more on pro features. I'm still trying to figure out pricing model, maybe what will be available in pro version. Finish API client adjustments for Python, Go, and PHP. This is, I'm not sure I will be able to finish this till release actually, but I will try. So a lot of new fields added, like offset, epoch positions. For example, I talked about like client ID in unsubscribe and subscribe API, etc. I'm planning to release in the end of summer, hopefully, and we'll write a blog post somewhere, maybe on Hubber, maybe in Centrifugo documentation itself. Don't really know. So that's all. That's all. What do you think, guys? Any can say something about or ask questions? Any feedback?
Very cool.
Oh, you wrote something in the chat, right? I haven't seen it while speaking. I haven't seen it.
How soon it will be released? How soon it will be released?
In the end of summer, I suppose. Yeah, so
Sounds good.
1.5 months. Yeah. Yeah, I think most things are ready already. Just final cleanups, which actually require a lot of time, but they are minor. And I can release without them, I suppose. So just improve things during V3 lifecycle later. What do you think about Pro features? Are they seem useful for someone? Or what?
I'm curious about the user active status thing. We implemented that ourselves by simply storing last online at or last interaction at or whatever at the database, and then sending updates about that to all the interested users. But yeah, I'm curious how this will work.
So could you tell a bit more how you send updates?
So we
some
so-
sort of push or polling for updates?
So we use SWR, which is this Vercel's library for fetching. It doesn't matter. The thing is that when the page loads, we load the data from the server, which contains the most recent last online ad, and then we send updates to the. So we push. We make a post request to the server saying, "Hey, last online ad changed to now." And then the server figures out whether it is necessary to update the value in the database, not to publish too many updates to the clients. And then once we have once we have validated that it makes sense to update the last online ad, we figure out all the connected users. So connected is a bad word. So we have our users are grouped into communities. So and we only let users know of each other's online status if they are in the same community. So if user A updates the status, we send the update to all the communities that the user A is in. And that's how we have achieved this, and it works okay. I think we haven't seen too many problems yet.
Yeah, so it sounds similar to what Artyom said, right?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. I need to figure out. So it will be similar to what you do, but without automatic posting to interested users, because Centrifugo can't know the list of these users.
So then each client has to fetch the status of all the active users of the website, right?
Yeah, all users it connected to,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
so, and actually, Centrifugo implementation is pretty performant. So it uses, you can ask in batch, and this user active status data can be sharded over different Redis instances. Also, Redis cluster supported. So this almost this works in similar way like Centrifugo Redis engine, so you can scale this information. Yeah, but regarding updates, this is hard to achieve, but I will try to think on this. Maybe there is some way.
We all thank you for your thinking.
Cool, thanks.
Maybe you have some internal diagrams of how the Centrifugo works under the hood, so that maybe community can help how to make this feature regarding online status.
I can share. Actually, this works in pretty simple way. It just saves data to Redis, and as soon as you want to get this information, this is a request to Redis. Nothing more than this. So it just built into Centrifugo. What previously was possible to do outside of Centrifugo now will be possible natively, but inside it just requests to Redis. Yeah, so if you have any ideas on how to achieve this, please share, but I don't have at this moment. Could you please release the video of this meeting on Telegram? Yeah, I will try. Never did this before, so maybe I will fail. Yeah. Any other questions, maybe?
I had talked with you about 2 months ago, and you said that Centrifugo allows to add external APIs, or I don't remember exactly what you said. You said it's possible to extend Centrifugo endpoints. To extend Centrifugo endpoints. Could you give more details?
I think I told about RPC API, which is
And how it's possible to extend?
It's possible to extend for client-side requests. There is already RPC method in every client. So you can call RPC method, configure a proxy endpoint, and this proxy endpoint will be called with any params client provided. So you can ask any information from client side using RPC from your backend.
Does it mean that I completely talk to Centrifugo from client side only?
Not only to Centrifugo, because Centrifugo is written in Go, and it's just mostly impossible to extend it with custom code.
No, I don't mean to with custom code. I mean, say I have 10 endpoints to my backend server. Can I make so that my clients talk to Centrifugo only, so that I don't make always new HTTP request, so that I don't open HTTP request every time? So I know Telegram Web uses WebSocket protocol to talk to backend server. It was done, I think, because HTTP requests consume a lot of resources, both in client side and in server side. That's why they communicate with backend server in WebSocket way?
I wouldn't concerned about this actually, because it having WebSocket as a communication channel has its disadvantages, because you lose a way to load balance HTTP requests. But since if you still want a more performant way to communicate with your backend, it's now possible to communicate over gRPC, which uses, if you will use gRPC without any load balancing on application level, then it will be a single connection, and each gRPC RPC request will be multiplexed over this single connection. So it's mostly the same as WebSocket single connection. It should reduce some overhead for you. Yeah, gRPC will be available in Centrifugo v3 instead of HTTP. So you can try to measure, but I would not replace it just without measurement. So
Okay.
yeah,
Got you. Thanks.
cool. Anyone else?
Will be a section in docs with comparison with other solution.
No,
For example, in Chan.
no, unfortunately, no. Just because I don't have time for this.
Oh,
Yeah, it requires a lot of time, which I don't have
I see.
much. Yeah, I'd like to have this. Maybe it will be at some point later, but or maybe someone from community will do this. Yeah, so Centrifugo stays open source, even if there is a pro version, and with permissive license. So just contribute, compare, etc. By the way, a very interesting thing that you mentioned, Enchan. I looked many times at Enchan, and actually it looks very similar to Centrifugo in its possibilities, right?
It looks like version 3. It's much closer to Enchan with unidirectional.
Which one?
No, I don't explain it, but what I see in docs of Enchan, it looks like a short version of Centrifugo, much closer, because unidirectional and Redis uses in same way.
Yeah.
Regarding to the docs.
Yeah, that's why I said we are very similar. I saw that Enchan author wanted to create another system which is supposed to be much better than Enchan, but I think he didn't proceed with this. Yeah, very interesting to see a comparison. Of course, Centrifugo is, in my opinion, Centrifugo is much more flexible since Enchan based on Nginx. And this can limit author to implement some features, but it has its own advantages, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really like comparisons because it's pretty
hard.
It's pretty uncomfortable thing for me to do. Yeah, you know, you need to compare something. If your product is better, it's a bit shame to post this because you pretend to put some hate to another project. Sorry for these words. And if your product is worse, then you're just upset. Yeah, so I prefer on community help to do this.
Okay.
Yes, hopefully during V3 life cycle, I will be able to improve community a bit. So due to new features, which should simplify integration with Centrifugo, maybe we get more users, more tutorials at some point. Yeah, tutorials is what we really need at this moment, because things work pretty good. There are a lot of features, but most users just don't understand how to use it. And I understand this. So maybe I will try to provide more videos about each Centrifugo feature in the future. Just to explain.
It will be nice.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to tell something, maybe share some sort of information how you're using Centrifugo. Otherwise, I suppose we can finish this meeting. A lot of time spent. Everyone is tired.
So sorry that I missed most of it, but we use Centrifugo in the Patio chat app.
Where?
It's like in the Patio chat app. It's like
Chat application.
it's a college chat basically, and it's been really good. It's been really solid. We have had some, even with spikes and lots of, because that's what we kind of have a lot of, since we're broadcasting messages out to multiple users. Sometimes when they start responding back and forth in the same chat, it starts like sending a bunch of messages on top of each other. But even with those spikes, it's been working really well. And
do you have a scalable Centrifugo setup with Redis or just one node?
It's 4 publishing nodes, 4 subscription nodes. So I separated like the subscribers from the publishing side, because the publishing side was actually heavier than the subscribing side. There's only maybe like 400, like 800 users usually on the subscribing side sitting, but we can be publishing like millions of messages sometimes, because there's like 5,000 users in chat that I'll send one message per chat for each user. So yeah, it's been working. I think at some point I'm kind of thinking maybe I will take Centrifuge, but I also want to review the recording and see if there's like pro features that I can use to improve my situation here with this particular company. So it'll be cool. But yeah, it's been great. It's been pretty good. We set it all up in Fargate and with Terraform. So I'm actually gonna try to release that at some point. Once I have a moment.
Cool to have a Terraform setup available for everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because we don't have like a Docker, setup that I think many of you guys have, and we didn't want to do EKS, so AWS setup. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully you will stay with Centrifugo.
Yeah, it's I like it a lot, but I actually had to prove it. I had to build a benchmark myself. So I built one that has 100,000 subscribers, and there was I think 40,000 messages a second being sent through it, and I'm actually going to post that. Definitely, because it's just like one repo on GitHub, and it's been going really well. Like it worked on the same setup with 4 nodes, and those 4 nodes on pub side are like quad cores with like 8 gigs of RAM, and then on the sub side there's only dual cores with 4 gigs of RAM. So, and it supported the 100K. That was impressive.
Yeah, and don't forget that you can still scale Redis itself, since data can be sharded, and it can improve things at some, if you post in different channels, for example.
Yeah, I think we were just trying to calculate like 100x load for our current setup, basically, to see how the scalability for the next year is going to be going. And it worked out just fine. And then after that, I think we'll have to put multiple Redis nodes and make it even bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Hope you will release something internal for others.
Yeah, just been backed up with stuff, but I'll try.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I suppose we can finish. Let me stop recording.